Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. So on the line, I have someone who works for Empire Avenue, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Aaron White is his name, and I have him to thank for me losing a week of, well, anything other than playing just probably one of the most amazing games I've ever played in my entire life, and I was an adventure on the Atari 2600 addict. Either way, Aaron's joining us by way of a Mumble chat room. So, Aaron, do you mind introducing yourself and your role with Empire Avenue?
Yeah, absolutely. I am, see what my official title is, Director of Digital Alchemy. I am responsible for all the user experience, front-end design, development. So I do all the graphic design, front-end development, coding, all that kind of stuff.
So you are the person responsible for my castle icon.
Yes, I am.
So I was just remarking to the live chat here just a couple minutes ago before we started to record the video that I purchased a luxury item known as a castle, and I also have a sports car too. And the reason why I bought these is because the castle will allow me to accrue net wealth on a daily basis, and 25,000 EVEs on a weekly basis. The sports car does the same, although virtually the same, although to a lesser degree. So by buying these virtual items with real money, I'm basically getting more for my money. They'll have paid themselves off within 7 weeks, and then everything else on top of that is just bonus. Now, the interesting thing about that is I've never purchased a virtual item in the game, ever. I mean, all right, not just the game, any game. Anything, ever. Never purchased virtual items. This one I did. I was like, yeah, it makes sense, because I know I'm going to be, hooked on this stuff, for ages. So I wanted to ask Aaron, how many people buy these luxury items?
It kind of varies. One of the reasons we put in the luxury items is, one, it's engaging and it allows you to kind of progress a little bit faster. Throughout the game itself. You can dollars to buy virtual currency or the luxury items that give you a benefit and kind of boost your share price in your activity. It's a way for new users to kind of get a head start on the game.
What about brands that are engaging on Empire Avenue?
I'm not sure off the top of my head if any brands have purchased any luxury items. I know that we are in some preliminary discussions for possibly some custom branded. I know that last night they released one for the Altimeter meetup that they did, which was our first branded luxury item. And I think down the road, it's definitely in the plan to bring on, some more branded icons for, companies and whatnot that help them kind of promote their business and interact with, new users at the same time.
So in doing all this, what has, in your estimation, what has been the biggest surprise out of putting all this together as a, would you call yourself an alchemist?
My biggest surprise, as far as what users are doing, or just, kind of in general?
Yeah, as far as what users are doing, things that you did not expect to kind of spring out of either your efforts specifically or the team's efforts entirely.
The biggest thing for me is, the community that has, or the communities that have kind of developed out of doing this. The entire goal was to build something around what you do online, your content creation, and your activity. But our users have just taken it to a whole nother level, and they've created these communities outside of the site, such as the Social Empire Facebook group, different private communities within Empire Avenue. And they've just kind of completely blown up and just become a really huge, solid, constant interaction with one another.
And I was remarking to somebody, it was either somebody, who was it? It may have been even someone in my own social circle and beyond Empire Avenue. I've never been engaged with a community, really, as deeply as I have with Empire Avenue. Usually, as I am right now, usually I'm only invested in a lot of the communities that I belong to because I'm trying to maintain them. And what's interesting for me is that I can maintain my own brand, my own identity, my own efforts, and still engage a completely different community and, essentially, well, kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And that is, to me, it's just, I think, invaluable to spend my time on something that gets me in my efforts and being myself further along.
Which is, one of the really good benefits from it. We've kind of created something where people that are really savvy with social media, kind of across the board, they know about this stuff, and they know how to connect with people. But through Empire Avenue, you can kind of get through the crud, kind of delineate the signal between the noise, so to say. And I think that's really beneficial for a lot of people that know about social media and how to use social media to their benefit.
It's interesting, though. You bring that up, and I can't really pinpoint maybe more than just a couple of people who I've met through quote-unquote social media, because you got to understand I've been doing this, whatever this is, long before social media was even a buzzword or a term in general. I've only met a couple of people, including Jesse Stay. And seeing him there in the community, and he's someone who gets it, was heartening. But what was disheartening is how and this is what I've tried to explain in the blog post I did with all my tips and strategies, how some people are treating this more like Facebook or Twitter than they are something that really hasn't been seen before.
It's an interesting point because we're somewhat in kind of uncharted territories, but in a familiar sea, I guess.
Has that been, do you think, a help or a hindrance in terms of adoption? Because I see just amazing, tremendous, constant engagement on site.
I'd probably say it's both. It can be a hindrance, but only if you make it so. People are so ingrained with what they think Facebook should be and what Twitter is. Although I don't think anybody really understands what Twitter or even Facebook is to use it to its full power. So I think it can be a detriment and a huge boost to what you're trying to do and accomplish.
So are you incredibly active on the front end, or are you really more concentrating your firepower on making everything work and look better?
I do both, along with various other tasks. Customer support, a lot of the social media stuff. I'm part of the brain behind a lot of the activity of EAV Squirrel and EAV support on Twitter.
And it's Empire Avenue, or I'm sorry, Empire Ave on Twitter, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I gotta say, when I said there was an account that came up the other day that didn't look like it was a very good account, I DM'd you right away, and since you were following me at least, you were able to see that and jump on it. Whoever saw it jumped on it real quick, and it was gone within a minute or two.
Oh, absolutely. I think with any really good startup, not just with Empire Avenue, but I think we can kind of take it to a whole other level. It's really about the team. We strive and work really, really hard to be as responsive and quick, to everybody's request, because, when you're building a business like that, it's extremely important to, be engaging and let people know that, there's a real person or people behind the mask, I guess.
Well, it seems to be working well enough, I'd say, so far. At least, like I said, enough to make me not want to be away from looking at my account constantly.
Which is a good thing. But, it's okay to let go just a little bit. I think some people at the very beginning get so overwhelmed and they feel that they have to be on the site, 24/7. And the only person that needs to do that is, Dupes and myself and some of the other guys on the team. It's okay to walk away and take a breather. You're still active online. You might not be on the site, but you're still tweeting. You're still posting Facebook updates. You're doing your videos on YouTube. You're still interactive. just because you're down on the site doesn't mean that your price is going to go down. It might, but there's different factors kind of involved there.
I think what's interesting to me is finding new people, either people that were connected to me or weren't altogether, and that's been I wouldn't say eye-opening, but it's certainly been a different type of experience for me.
Oh, that's for me as a user. That's the most benefit I get out of the site. I know that one of the best stories that I can kind of relate is Darcy Kiernan, who does scuba diving. His thing was being able to interact with people in that field, scuba diving, that outside of his geographic and social network that way.
Yes, scuba on Empire Avenue. I think I invested in him at one point, and then the ratio in my calculations didn't quite work out. But is that the guy you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't scuba dive. I've got problems with my ears and this thing called claustrophobia. So does anybody out there, someone was asking if I'd answer questions, but I don't know if those questions are related to Empire Avenue in general. If you have questions that either I could clarify or most likely Aaron could clarify. Now, most of what I've learned in using Empire Avenue has been, I've been trying to focus it and turn it into a strategy. Someone, PJ Bob 797, just asked, why did I invest in you? Or why did I invest in him? I don't know. I don't mention your stock ticker symbol, because if I invested in you, chances are your ratio was good for me, and that may change, especially if you don't have a lot of shareholders, and I would have to dump you. So I tend to, if I find a really good investment, I tend not to tell people. I tell them when a new hot stock comes on the market, because that would accelerate its growth, especially if I think it does have growth potential. But I tend not to mention sleepers. In fact, I've gone as far as to buy shares in a sleeper. That's what I call someone who a lot of people really don't know. He or she is off the radar. And I'll go into my profile page and delete the status update so that no one can see it right away. I've done that. And by the way, Aaron, that's feedback for the team. I wish I could toggle that. I don't want to let everybody, I want to be able to say, leave a shout or post this on my profile or not, because there's some things I want to keep my portfolio, it's public, that's fine. But I'm guarding my investments because that's going to give me returns. And if more people find out about them and they're not hot growing stocks, they could lose their value. The question that someone else asked, and Aaron, hopefully you can speak to this, what other than blog posts or RSS feeds that are validated and verified as blogs, what accelerates the amount of dividends? Certainly most, and hopefully you have a clearer answer to that question.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that correctly, only because I don't know the math behind everything very well. There's much smarter people. Our math genius Nitham, who's off in Cambridge somewhere, came up with a lot of that logic. It's really about the activity that you have, the interactions, commenting on not so much blog posts, but commenting in Facebook and contacting people, sending people messages, the shout outs, the social interaction that you would get.
That's one of the reasons why I like it, is because it encourages even more people to comment on my YouTube videos or rate the videos, any kind of gestures they may do on Twitter with me or me with them. We're boosting each other that way. And I think that, to me, it takes social media to a completely different level. I mean, a level so grand, honestly, and I'm not, trying to inflate your ego at all, but I don't think so many people can understand that. I mean, we're kind of tied into, this is Twitter, this is Facebook, this is YouTube, and finally we're in a universe where it benefits us to invest in other people, not just our investment, but I'm investing time in other people and seeing a direct benefit in the relationships that are generated, not just dividends. And I just want to make sure I got that across specifically with you, because that's what I really appreciate about what you guys have pulled off.
Oh yeah, it's great. I remember a few years ago trying to teach corporations about Twitter, and the hardest part that I came across was sending out case studies, letting people know that you have a new case study is not the purpose of Twitter. You need to engage and interact with people, question and comment, and, be active.
Got a question here from a user, Aloha Aaron, and I believe I'm very hesitant about mentioning someone's stock ticker symbol because it could influence your value in a negative way. May drive up your stock though, and I believe so. If you want to mention the stock ticker symbol, I have no problem with that. Chris, one of the things I have had a hard time understanding is how do I work on increasing the amount of money my shareholders receive? My return is 0.33 per share, but my average per day is very low in terms of dividends. Aaron, do you want me to try to take a stab at that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna actually go and look at their page real quick.
No worries, and I'm familiar with the user account because again, I'm honestly I think the reason why it's so addicting is because I'm constantly looking for a better investment, and I'm exploring and I'm seeing and I'm looking, finding people that I've known for years. I'm like, oh my god, cool, they're doing actually pretty well. To me, in terms of increasing the amount of money your shareholders receive, not money, or EVEs or dividends, you have to increase your activity. Across the board. That's the only way you're going to increase the amount of dividends. Increase your activity. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, blog, everything you do. This is why it's very dangerous to stay invested in a big name account that isn't producing dividends because their stock price is inflated and you're not getting any amount of return as you could get with a stock price at a much lower point, specifically with a higher share ratio. So to increase your dividends, be more active. Trust me, I post a video, or I make a video to YouTube. Matt actually posts it. Matt, I'm not going to mention his handle because I'm afraid to blow his percentages. We do things that you can participate with. Or in the Facebook fan page, constantly active. The YouTube channel, Twitter, and beyond. You have to be active, Aloha.
So this is that double-edged sword. You talk about the inflation of your share price. I can jump on Twitter and I can start generating, like 1,000 tweets a day. I think right now I probably average like a couple hundred a week. But if I start doing like thousands and kind of getting that artificial kind of growth in my activity, that's going to, in the long run, hurt my share price as well.
Yep, it's got to be balanced. At least from my perspective, I'm not speaking as I'm not an expert. I'm just a player, and these are my pro tips, so to speak. In fact, one of my other pro tips that I outlined in the tips document, which is at go.tagjag.com/empire tips, is to update your status. This is what I've used for years in more than one place, like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and beyond. I use ping.fm. This does not, it counts for a status update, but it doesn't necessarily count as real engagement. Commenting and getting comments and seeing engagement in an account, it likely influences your value, not just on Empire Avenue. The more active you are there, of course, the higher your number, your count for that particular chicklet will go. But it's not just setting up a Facebook fan page, but it's actually having engagement. This is why if you want my dividends to improve, you have to comment more on YouTube or thumbs up more on YouTube if you want my dividends to increase. So as a content producer, the more activity you have specifically in creating that groundswell, the better off those numbers are going to be. So I've got another question from Angry. Does having unactive, I think he means inactive accounts on EA, decrease your value at all? Example, my Facebook is 1, but my Twitter is 30 plus.
It does to a certain extent. We take the top 5 social connection. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Oh yeah, we
take the top 5 social interactions that you have, or connections that you have, and that is what dictates your share price. So you can have all of the current connections listed, but we only take the top 5. So having a lower YouTube compared to Twitter, it will affect your share price, but again, it ultimately comes down to that interaction that you have. It's really about quality, not quantity.
Yeah, and I do my best to leave. I mean, it's kind of overwhelming with all the people who buy in. I recommend for people who buy into me, please buy bigger. I mean, if only because less shareholders, less mouths to feed, bigger investments. But I get so many people investing in me now, it's impossible to keep up and say thank you. I mean, it's just not. I can't do it as quickly. But yeah, I'm doing my best to stay engaged either on their pages. If I invest in them, I make sure they know why I invested in them. I started to send the tips, and now I'll just be sending a link off to the blog post where they can read and see, oh, this is why Chris invested in me. So hopefully I'm creating better relationships by creating, in my estimation, better players. This is another pro tip of mine, by the way, speaking of Angry's question. Let's say it's a big name or a big brand, if they haven't added an RSS feed, they're probably not going to be producing the dividends that you would expect or that you would want for your initial investment. It's always good, I would say, to jump on a hot stock. I would wait till it cools down if you get the 30% commission warning because it's a hot stock. Hopefully you get in before then. But if they do not stay engaged, if they aren't producing the dividends for you, the brand may be a good brand, but if they're not treating their shareholders accordingly, it's not a good investment. And they may be a great brand. In fact, a couple brands have invested in me. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is really kind of neat. And I looked at what they had and I offered my tips. I'm like, here's what you can do to increase your value to me as someone who wants to invest and make good investments. I'm all about accelerating my EVEs, and I'd rather, invest in someone who's really, who gets what this game is, and uses that, to increase engagement or, branding, whatever you want to say. But, it's also about being a smart investor. Let me see if I've got another tip here. Here's a question from Electronic Geek. Is there a limit in Empire Avenue? And I don't know if he means, or he or she means, if there's an artificial ceiling or we really haven't hit it.
Let's see. There are limits, but the limits change.
Okay.
There were some limits in place that we had way months ago, back in the early days, and it just the site and the game kind of changed drastically over time. That we're always kind of adjusting that kind of stuff. So to say that there's a hard limit, yes and no. Everything within Empire Avenue is constantly evolving. So there isn't a really good, direct, clear answer to that.
It's interesting you would say that. There's another question, or not really a question, a statement came in from Chris Gore. Says, hey, Chris, EDM says, don't believe a word you say, so I won't. I actually appreciate that. And the reason why is because, much like the platform's evolving, my strategy's evolving too. And I've been very clear about that. I know what I've seen has worked. Not to say that I've nailed everything correctly, but I'm always interested in looking at a different suggestion and a different strategy to better adjust and focus my strategy. So if EDM says that not to believe a word I say, he could be right. Absolutely. He could absolutely be right. And I really would want to know what it is that he's suggesting, because I could be getting it wrong. I know that it's worked for me. I know that my strategy has worked for others, but that doesn't mean that it's the comprehensive strategy. It doesn't mean it's the right strategy. It doesn't mean it's the wrong strategy. There's a lot of variables at play. So I absolutely appreciate that EDM says, don't believe a word I said. Listen to him. Don't believe a word I say. Try it for yourself.
And that's kind of the beauty of Empire Avenue, especially for me as a user. Empire Avenue is what you make of it. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And not just the site, but in everything you do across your social connections. So you could be completely focused on the game and your share price, or making connections, or increasing your connection scores, or measuring, taking some of the statistics and getting that information out of it. It's going to be different for every user.
Now here's a good question, and it's somewhat related. I ended up pulling in MySpace. Believe it or not, I've known Sean Percival for some time, and he's works for MySpace. The Startup Shirt asks, and I may know the answer to this question, or I have my guesses, why don't I get credit for having a strong MySpace following?
Um, let's see. So we have the connections that we currently have, and we have a really long list of potential connections to put in the future. I would say most of it right now is just a kind of a resource constraint. Trying to get so many things accomplished and try to focus on the kind of the high level stuff, and then as time goes on, start to bring in some of those more different kind of connections and start to figure out how to evaluating them. The really big issue behind this stuff is trying to figure out how to measure it. As you see with like other companies that are trying to measure social influence, it's almost impossible. So trying to figure out how to measure something like that, it takes time. Much smarter people than me, they have to sit down and kind of figure that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, the one thing that I was really, I think could and I brought this up on Twitter, and I know it's a resource constraint, discuss seemed to me would be amazing, because it would not only encourage people to use Discuss and comment on blogs, but to look at everybody else's blog, especially if they had Discuss installed. So you would basically further accelerate dividends and the idea of really exploring worlds that you really weren't connected to simply by adding that type of connection. But I understand it is a resource constraint. You got to kind of go with the tallest nails first.
Yeah, and some of it's kind of out of our hands. It's also technical considerations. Like most third-party companies, we're limited to the capability of to the API. So I know that a lot of people wish that they could have like all of their fan pages, but unfortunately, it's not something that Facebook will allow us to do in their current architecture.
Got a question here from Lelouch or Lelouch. I'm not exactly sure how to say. This is the problem. When you read chat names, you actually say them loud. They look different than they may actually sound. It looks like he's left the chat room, but hopefully he's still listening. If not, he'll get the archive of this video. What is a good way to find things instead of just typing in random stuff in the search? Now, my suggestion for that is click on usernames. That's really the easiest way to do it, or browse other people's portfolios. That's the way I do it. I very rarely do I search. Do you have any other suggestions there, Aaron? Maybe we'll take one more question.
No, it's exactly how I do it. I'll spend an hour or two a day just kind of trolling the site, looking for new users, searching portfolios, finding out who people bought, sorting by purchase time. The Facebook app has a feature that we're trying to bring into the other site, or the main site, showing the portfolio by the purchase time. Just trying to find the information. But the search and just kind of trolling in that discovery of what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up with this question. It's a great question. And I don't know if this link could be made more prominent, but the Startup Shirt asks, and I think he asked the MySpace question, does Empire Avenue have an API that is available? I already know the answer to the question, but Aaron?
Yes, we do. We have our version 1 of the API at apidocs.empireavenue.com, and Dupes and one of our consultants are working diligently to get a version 2, a much more secure and enhanced version of the API out as soon as possible.
Yeah, where I don't have to give a username and password, essentially.
Yeah, I believe we're looking into using the OAuth standard for authentication.
In fact, I've got the what is it called? My Empire. Sorry, I kept my finger down. Yeah, My Empire. This application was not designed by Empire Avenue. It was designed very well by fans, the community, and the API works. And this is the thing. When you have a rabid fan base that would go as far as to create, I would say, a very good, an iPhone app that I would have expected to come from the company itself, when you have a community that works so well to create such an amazing experience, you've got a winner. Because so many companies out there don't have that, and they wish they did. That's something that's invaluable beyond all this stuff, having that community in it. And I think that's really that's what keeps me coming back.
Yes, I'm doing that. To address the API version 2, I think we're targeting within like the next 2 weeks, give or take. It's been pretty crazy last few weeks, so we're working as hard as we can. To address your comment about the community, our community, I think we have probably one of the best communities ever. The most engaged, the most, kind of thought-provoking, and by far, in my opinion, one of the most fun communities around. People have kind of lost sight of the fact, because of things progress so fast nowadays. Like when Twitter first started, they didn't make their own apps. They had an API. And it was all of their people, their community that built their apps for them. And that's kind of how they grew. You need the community to kind of carry the company and help you grow.
We're going to wrap it up here because I think the video's kind of gone long. I'm going to continue to answer questions. Aaron, I don't know if you want to stick around too, if you got things to do on a Friday night. I don't have a life. I'm going to be playing Empire Avenue. But I just got a tweet from Dupes. That's at DUPS. Follow him on Twitter. That'll increase your scores slightly. Dupes says, and it got cut off, but it says, say hi to all the folks from me, from deep in the, and then it kind of cut off. So he's deep somewhere, assumingly he's in the trenches, working to make the site better. And let me just say, on behalf of, well, at least my own community and me, thank you for doing what you do. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife is actually in UK, so got nothing going on except verifying blogs, so I can hang out for a little while. But yeah, absolutely, we really appreciate you guys kind of doing this. It's been a lot of fun. I hope that we can do some more.
No problem. Okay, so there you go, Aaron White. He's at Empire Avenue on Twitter. He's behind that account. He also has a Twitter handle, and if someone in chat can key that in, so that there you go. Thank you, T-Silb. I always want to say T-Slib. Somehow I transpose those letters. So there you go. You can find him there. And, of course, I'm going to be around. And, you can ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer them, or certainly point you towards the tip doc. Update the tip doc. If you have other suggestions for tips, leave a comment there. Or, of course, engage in your own community on Empire Avenue. I mean, the options are plentiful. Just, I say join now. See why it is exciting, at least as it has been for me. I'm doing the things I'm doing anyway and having a hell of a lot more fun with it. So either way, you can find me everywhere. Just Google the word Chris. I'm there.